You've walked into a room. A room you've never been in. And somehow, instantly, you know, with eerie, full-body certainty, that you've been here before. That you've said these exact words. That you've watched this exact light fall across this exact wall. The feeling is unmistakable. And then it's gone. What just happened to your brain? The word is French. Déjà vu. It means, literally, already seen. It was first named by a French philosopher named Émile Boirac in 1876. And for most of the time since, it was dismissed as a curiosity. A glitch. A trick of memory. Something that happens to people who read too much fiction or watched too much film. But in the last 30 years, neuroscience has caught up. And what we've found is that déjà vu isn't mysterious at all. It's your brain double-checking itself. First, and this surprises almost everyone, déjà vu is not rare. Studies vary, but somewhere between 60 and 70% of people report having experienced it at least once. Most report 1 or 2 episodes a year. A small percentage, maybe 5%, get it monthly or more. There's no clear link to intelligence, education, or personality. It tends to start in late adolescence, peak in the 20s and 30s, and taper off after that. Which already tells us something. It's a feature of a brain in a particular developmental window. Not a glitch. Not a prophecy. A phase. One of the oldest explanations comes from a striking source. Patients who had their corpus callosum, the bridge between the brain's 2 hemispheres, surgically severed to treat severe epilepsy. In the 1960s and 70s, researchers like Michael Gazzaniga studied these split-brain patients and noticed something. When information was presented to only one hemisphere, the other hemisphere would sometimes invent a reason for the action. A made-up explanation that felt, to the patient, completely real. The brain, in other words, would rather confabulate than admit it didn't know. And déjà vu, the theory goes, may be a milder version of this. A brief desync between hemispheres where one half registers a moment slightly before the other, and the second half, on catching up, thinks it's remembering rather than perceiving. There's a second, more recent explanation. And it's elegant. Every time you recall a memory, that memory becomes briefly unstable. The brain has to rebuild it, reconsolidate it. And during that brief window of instability, tiny errors can sneak in. Sometimes, and this is the déjà vu theory, your brain partially encodes a present moment as if it were a recalled memory. It tags the experience as old before it's finished being filed. The result, you feel like you're remembering something you haven't yet experienced. The sensation of remembering, that warm, vivid, distinct quality, comes not from an old memory but from a present perception mislabeled. There's a third framework, and it's probably the most powerful. It's called predictive processing. The idea is simple. Your brain isn't a passive receiver of reality. It's a prediction engine. Constantly. Every fraction of a second, your brain generates a model of what's about to happen, then checks that model against the incoming sensory data. Mostly, the predictions are right, and you never notice. But sometimes, and this is the key, a prediction fires a few milliseconds too early. The brain experiences its own prediction as if it were an incoming perception. Then the real perception arrives. And because the prediction already felt like a memory, the present feels like the past. The déjà vu is the gap between the prediction firing and the sensory data catching up. The reason déjà vu feels so fleeting is that it's self-correcting. The whole experience is, fundamentally, an error signal. Your brain noticed a desync, a mislabel, a prediction ahead of itself. And almost immediately, it corrects. The feeling, which depends on the brief overlap between 2 slightly mistimed neural events, collapses. That's why déjà vu almost never lasts more than a few seconds. It's not a sustained state. It's a correction notice, briefly visible, then resolved. There's one important caveat. Frequent, intense, prolonged déjà vu, especially when it's accompanied by strange smells, déjà vécu, the feeling that an entire scene is repeating, or déjà entendu, the feeling that you've heard these words before, can be a warning sign. It's associated with temporal lobe epilepsy. The same brain region involved in mild déjà vu is also the region that, in some seizure disorders, fires these patterns uncontrollably. Most déjà vu is harmless. But if yours is happening daily, or comes with disorientation, see a neurologist. That's not a glitch. That's a signal. And then, quickly, the myths. Déjà vu is not precognition. It does not predict the future. It doesn't mean you've lived a past life. It doesn't mean you're tapping into some cosmic memory. People who claim otherwise are usually pattern matching, remembering the rare times déjà vu was followed by something notable, and forgetting the overwhelming majority of times it wasn't. This is a well-known cognitive bias. Your brain is built to find patterns. Sometimes it finds them where they aren't. So déjà vu isn't a peek behind the curtain of reality. It's a peek behind the curtain of your brain. A brief, vivid, involuntary reminder that the mind you live in is a constructed model, running on predictions, checking itself, occasionally tripping over its own speed. The strange feeling isn't a mystery. It's your neural machinery, doing exactly